In a world obsessed with rankings, two men dare to chisel greatness out of metaphorical granite, one wildly subjective opinion at a time. This show, every episode, we select four icons from a single topic and immortalize them in our own personal halls of fame. Subjective? Absolutely. Debatable? Always. Set in stone? Until next week, welcome to the Mount Rushmore Show, where your top four says everything about you. I'm Mike Mintz. He's Joe Mintz. And Joe, this is a special, man. Super Bowl Sunday. It is actually Super Bowl Sunday, and we're hanging out here doing a podcast. What's up, man?
I am pumped. It is one of my favorite days of the year. We're football guys on here talking about the football on the biggest day of football's life every year. It always happens. The day that everyone calls out sick on Monday. If you call out sick the day after Super Bowl, you're a liar. You are a liar. You are hung over, is what you are.
I was legitimately sick one Super Bowl Monday, and you know what I did? I still went to work because I thought everybody would think that, that's the problem. So
Well, you may be sick, but no one believes you.
that's fair.
Today isn't just a championship football game. This has become its own cultural holiday. And I'm waiting for the day when we get the Monday off federally. Like someone enacts a bill, a law about making it a federal holiday. One day we'll live in that world. If not, I think one day the NFL might run our government anyway. At this point, it's getting so large. So maybe. But it's a day millions of people, not only in the US anymore, but the world, treat it like Thanksgiving or New Year's. We gather friends and family. You fire up the grill, maybe pile some plates with wings and chips. Crank up the TV. Maybe argue over some commercials. You get a little John Hamm, Matt Damon action going on. Discuss halftime performances, and there's a lot of debate over the prop bets. Um, Even if people don't care a lick about football, the rest of the year, today is their day. It's community, it's entertainment, it's rivalry. It's that shared experience we all love. Um, it's kind of become part of this larger cultural moment. I think the commercials cost millions for every 10 seconds. And then the halftime shows tend to be polarizing now. I mean, global stars now, not just, Kenny Chesney going up there. No offense to Kenny Chesney. I'm just saying we're talking international appeal at this point. We're doing games in Brazil, Mike.
Yeah, Kenny
Um,
Chesney's catching strays over here.
I
Like,
know.
I
I
don't think he
love Kenny
deserved that.
Chesney. I'd be happy with that. And maybe one day, Kenny. Um, but it ideas to draw audiences beyond just your New England Patriots fandom. It gets everyone from every part of the world. Some people watch for the football, some do it for the ads, some for the music, and some just want to spend time with people they don't see often enough as used to party, eat wings. But that's what makes the day special. It's not just a game; it's a ritual, tradition, and for me, it's an unofficial national holiday. So, in that spirit, and because this year's game really fits one of our favorite themes, turnarounds, that's going to be the theme of today's episode, turnaround Super Bowl teams. And why? We have to acknowledge this Super Bowl matchup. Both teams playing weren't even in the playoffs last season. And that's a trend we've seen before, but not always this prominently, especially with New England. New England lost 13 games last year. That's one of the worst records in their franchise history. And now, in just one season, they turned themselves into a 14-win contender and have been clicking on all cylinders, especially their defense right now. Um, and I don't know, how do you feel, Mike, about the Patriots not only having a turnaround season, but being back in the Super Bowl only after having won six a few years ago? Is it too soon?
It is too soon, and not necessarily for me. I think I've mellowed with age. But I know there's a lot of people that feel this, right? They're feeling like this visceral reaction, like, come on, let other people do this. It was just not that long ago. And, we were inundated with Brady and the 20-year dynasty and all of that stuff. And so this is a totally different ball game, though, Joe. And for me to stand up and support the Patriots, like, look, I'm a fan of Vrabel and what he's doing. Drake May is pretty exciting, young quarterback. The turnaround, how can you not root for an underdog, even though they have that stink of the previous Patriots dynasty attached to
I
them?
can't
So
call New England an underdog ever.
exactly, yeah. So it's a tough one on that level. I see where both sides are coming from, but ultimately, I think we have to separate the beasts from each other. So
Yeah, it is not the teams I grew up watching. I rooted for New England. Our both of our fathers grew up in Connecticut, as Patriots fans, and then I kind of got indoctrinated a little bit into that world. And I grew up around Tom Brady. When I got started into football, it was Brady and Belichick. They were fun. They were winning. It was cool. And now I don't recognize any of the faces on the team. I mean, Vrabel's kind of cool that he's there because he was on those original dynasty teams, but it's just a different squad. And the only common denominator they have is the owner, Jonathan Kraft, who really has the last laugh of all of this.
yeah, and yeah, and we were talking at the tail end of last episode about Hall of Fame and stuff like that. And you look at a guy like Robert Kraft and you go, there's one thing that's united is he's been able to obviously do it for 20 years and he's bringing them or at least being at the head while they're coming back around. So there's some respect to be put there for sure.
If you're doing a Mount Rushmore of sports owners, it's got to include Jonathan Kraft. No, sorry,
He,
Robert
Robert
Kraft.
Kraft. Yep.
If it was a Mount Rushmore of Nepo babies, Jonathan Kraft would be on there. Correction.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I'm excited. And the Seahawks, like they're kind of a surprise too, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, it just credit to how the NFL is structured now that this can even happen. There was a time in the past when rebuilding took years. The only real path to improvement was through the draft, where you had rookies expected to develop over time, which at that point was 2, 3, 4 years where they really could become difference makers. That's why historically teams who missed the playoffs simply stayed poor for a while. But the league evolved, and now the landscape is about instant impact, kind of like what college football is now becoming as another a remnant of the NFL. Free agency is let teams add experienced difference makers right away. Trades can swap weak spots for established guys in a heartbeat. And teams have gotten much smarter at evaluating advanced metrics and putting players in schemes where they can succeed immediately. And the salary cap forces teams to constantly rethink and value in roles. The NFL used to be a slow build industry. Now it's turnaround league. And this year proves it. The quarterback for Sam Darnold, obviously a guy that you could call a journeyman at this point. They wouldn't have probably acquired in the old school NFL. But it's kind of a credit to our attention. We want immediate results and success. And the NFL has catered to that, certainly, with the what you've seen on the field and the result. So I'm not surprised. Um, but for this episode, it's a good time to talk about the biggest surprises of that we've seen on our four Mount Rushmore picks. So we're going to be talking about teams that not only missed the postseason, but you were like, "Whoa, how did that happen so quickly?"
Yeah, and I think this is the right time to do it, considering the teams that are in now and the direction, like you were saying about the NFL. Joe, for my criteria, I am picking ones that I was alive for and witnessed, not necessarily intentionally, when I was digging into this research. But like it's funny is there's at least two names on this list that popped in automatically when you said it was this one, and then I was like, well, man, I remember these turnaround teams. And so these are all ones that I have a living memory of. Let's put it that way. So
I have living memory of three of four of them. The other one, I read about the story, and I actually watched a documentary about one of the players on this team that talked about that turnaround, and I had to share that one too. But I can almost guarantee we'll share a couple of these.
I'd be surprised. And in my research, there's not a lot because now, to be clear, Joe, these are teams that have to turn around and win the Super Bowl.
Correct. And you're right. There are a lot of teams that missed the postseason at like 8-8 or 7-9. They were teetering, right? That made it. I mean, New England is ineligible this season because they have not yet won. We're recording this before the game, but they certainly would be likely on my Mount Rushmore given that record.
And there's a ton of teams that obviously are going to be left off. Something like the '98 Atlanta Falcons, the Dirty Birds. They
Yeah,
make the Super Bowl and a surprise team, but they don't win it, and they're outside of this particular episode.
Carolina Panthers too.
Another good choice,
Jake
yeah.
Delhomme.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we share how many we've shared three before, I think, haven't we?
We've never gone 4 for 4.
We've never gone. I wonder about this. I know you said an outside one, but I am older. I don't know, man. We
We'll
could do
see.
four
Why
for
don't you
four.
start? We'll find out right
All
away.
right. So this is the one that popped in my head when I first heard this one. It's one of my all-time favorite NFL teams. This is the 1999 St. Louis Rams. Greatest show on turf. Watch this happen. I loved every minute of it. If you don't know the story, this is the Kurt Warner team, right? He's working at it's not a Walmart, it's like a Hy-Vee. I can't remember where he was working, some sort of big box store. And, he ends up in the NFL and he was destroying teams as this at the helm. But it's not just Kurt Warner, guys. Marshall Faulk, one of the all-time greatest, you know, backs that dual threat backs as he could catch and run. The greatest show on turf. I mean, you got Oz Hakeem, you got Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. What an unbelievable team. Mike Martz running that at the offensive coordinator position. First dome team or dome field team to ever win a Super Bowl. They were so bad the previous year. And by the way, you were talking about how teams now, like, there's parity, but back then, back in the 80s and 90s, like, there were good teams and then there were bad teams. And those things never seemed to switch. The Rams were a consistently bad team when I was a kid, always bad. It was like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, they weren't going to win nothing. They were 4-12 the year before, turning around 13-3, one of the most all-time dominant teams, and win the Super Bowl by a yard. What an incredible Super Bowl. This is one of I love this. I love this team, Joe. And for this show, I had to put them number one.
Yeah, I'm going to share this with you, Mike. Do you ever watch the documentary series NFL Network does called America's Game, where they document each Super Bowl winner?
I've seen some of it. I haven't watched every single one of them. So
This is one of the best ones to watch. Just watch this one. I know so much about this team. It's such an inspiring story. Like you said, Rams have been historically the laughing stock, with the exception of one run they made in the 70s to just get crushed by the um, Pittsburgh Steelers at the time, the Steel Curtain. But what makes this team cool is the storylines leading into this year. One, you hired Dick Vermeil 2 years ago, who's a very successful coach in his own right when he was in Philadelphia. Comes back and he talks about this. He says, as a coach, doesn't matter who you are, you got 3 years. Figure it out. He's coming into a crap organization. His first 2 years are duds. They're 4-12. His second year, I think they're similar record their first year. One of the league's worst. And he's like, everything is here. I just got to make the postseason, make a jump. Um, the offense is so stagnant, little firepower. And what changed was luck. You should thank Rodney Harrison for the ACL tear of Trent Green, who Trent Green's serviceable quarterback, but he's not a Hall of Famer like Kurt Warner became. A guy who went from grocery store clerk to MVP in one season. An incredible story. And you already mentioned Marshall Faulk emerged as an every down threat, kind of the original Christian McCaffrey, we can call him. And then Coach Mike Martz, the offensive coordinator, he redefined offensive play calling with these rapid strike concepts. The offense just became historically lethal. And the greatest show on turf set records and changed offensive thinking around the league at that point. So for me, they didn't just turn around, they changed how offenses are built.
yeah, and I agree for all of those reasons. I love and Dick Vermeil. He's going to retire. Cries at his last press conference. If you know the history of Dick Vermeil, he's
Very
known for
emotional
crying. Yes,
guy.
he's known for crying. He's going to go out on a win and with one of the greatest all-time teams. I call him the original worst to first, Joe. That's probably fair. 4-12, turn it around. 13-3, win the Super Bowl. But like you said, it was the way they did it all season long that was just so exciting.
So we're 1 for 1 here.
Do you want me to go again, or why don't you do it? So.
Well, I think it's fitting my next pick, given who we just talked about. And it's the team that the greatest show on turf got upset by the following season, and that's the 2001 New England Patriots. Um, so before 2001, they were 5-11 under Drew Bledsoe, and they missed the postseason. And Tom Brady was a backup quarterback, not the guy yet, unheard of probably by most New England fans. And although they had a big name of a guy like Drew Bledsoe, who had already taken them to the Super Bowl before with Bill Parcells, Belichick, their head coach, wasn't a name yet. He got canned from the Browns. He reinvented himself as an DC again with New England and Parcells. He gets another chance, but even the way he treated the Jets job, he was on shaky ground. And the first year did not show any success. And the whole team had kind of this lack of identity and cohesion. And then 2001, Tom Brady took over, started, and delivered just consistent play as kind of a game manager. I think Bledsoe was a guy I felt he had to do it all. And as the defense developed, having a guy that could take a step back, because we know what Brady became, right? Brady was not like that this season. He was the guy he had to be, not the guy he would then become. Um, Bill Belichick's defensive system just clicked because that's what his bones. That's where he came from. Between Lawyer Malloy and Willie McGinnis and Teddy Bruschi, these guys started to come together. Teddy Bruschi being a big one of those, one of the playmakers who made huge stops for them. And Brady and Belichick turned smart game management into a big strength. And their Super Bowl was the beginning of the dynasty we now know of. And Brady's performance and clutch moments changed how teams really started to value quarterbacks. And timely for the Hall of Fame, Adam Vinatieri, who had the game-winning kick in that game, just got elected to the Hall of Fame, second kicker next to Morton Anderson.
Well, and he deserves it. And Joe, this we're going to share this one. We might go for four. We'll see. This was a no-brainer for me. It's the birth of a dynasty, right? This is this moment in time, and this has been heavily mythologized for football fans, right? Because it's the beginning of Tom Brady. He's not the guy that he will become, and that's the funny thing is like a lot of people try to compare first 3 year stats with quarterbacks against Tom Brady. That's not fair, right? Because Brady wasn't Brady then, but you see some of those flashes in the moments. You also have some really, really important games. I'm trying to think of the Snow Bowl, which was that game against the Raiders
Tuck
in
rule.
the Tuck
Rest in
game. Yeah,
peace, Tuck rule. They eliminated that one.
yes. Cinderella team, the Tuck Rule game against the Raiders in the divisionals. I mean, the last second field goal from Vinatieri to win it all. And it sets into motion what we know that the Patriots are the 10 Super Bowls later that they're going to be in from this point forward. It is one of to make it even more incredible, they beat the greatest show on turf, a heavily favored Rams team, because nobody knew what we know now, right? If we looking back on it, you go, of course, but at the time it was so mythologized now that it's amazing. Yeah, I love this team. Love that pick, Joe. Great pick.
Yeah, it's Drake May in comparison in a second year to Brady is on path to exceed him if this keeps up, which you never know. But we said that about Mahomes, and then you lose after the year. It's so much goes into it.
Yeah, let's see if the consistency sticks around. You got to do it for
Yeah,
20 plus,
but
man.
Brady
Yeah.
was
So
not Drake May in his second year. I'll tell you that.
no, Brady took some time to really fall into his place for sure. So 2 for 2, Joe. I think we're gonna do it, man. So
All right, you
this.
said already eliminated one because you said it was before your time. You would eliminate it. You
Oh, I
wouldn't
think
do
you're
that.
right. Oh yeah. Oh well. Let's see. This. I guess I'll do my next one because it's my wild card.
Okay.
Always throwing a wild card in there. This one you could argue is not much of a improvement from the previous season. This is the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles, the underdog special, right? Instead of the Philly special team. This is the turnaround. They go 13-3, tie a franchise record. They had went 7-9 the year before. They did make the playoffs, and that's why maybe some people would say this isn't that big of a turnaround. They're going to lose in the wild card round, but they're going to turn it around and really go kind of surprise everybody all the way through. Carson Wentz is going to get an ACL tear in week 14. So they're done, right? Like that's like losing your quarterback heading into the playoffs. Nick Foles, who steps in, leads the playoff charge, wins the game, catches a pass in the Philly special for the win there. Sports writers questioned if they could even perform without Wentz. The whole underdog theme, right? All-time record for combined yards, over 1,000 yards in that last Super Bowl there, and they are going to go on to win. I love this team. I love this game. I love this story, right? Underdogs all the way. Now, Philly's gone on to be pretty successful in the long run, but to me, they were an absolute surprise. And when I even heard they were in the Super Bowl, I was like, no, without your quarterback, it's never going to happen. But underdogs paid off this time. Cinderella kept dancing. So,
We have a theme of picking a team and their comeback, and then the next pick about the team that beat them later. We had Rams, then how the Rams lose to New England, and now we have Philly beats New England.
yep, yeah. So I don't know. Well, I think we're finally not matching up here, Joe.
Well, this one hurt when it happened. I remember where I was watching this game. I already started this saying how much of a Tom Brady Belichick guy I am. This one stung, and to see how well Brady played and still lose that game. In hindsight, I have a fond memory of Nick Foles because that is an awesome story. And I wonder about his career. It just he feels like the ultimate underdog. Well, I always compare it to like Doug Williams in many ways.
Well, that's a
They
good
feel very
comparison.
similar as far as their career trajectory. They had flashes and moments and showed stuff, but just couldn't put it all together to have that Hall of Fame type career. But there'll be uh, what's the term? Eulogized in history,
Yeah.
uh,
Memorialized. Yeah. So,
memorialized. Yeah, I can't think of the word. Yeah, you're better with words, Mike. Your history teacher.
yeah, that's right. So,
But they'll forever be immortalized for the cities that they won their rings in. I'm glad for that because Foles just seems like a salt of the earth dude. So although it hurt at the time, it was a big turnaround and even bigger surprise. As good as the team was that season, that they still were able to finish strong with a backup quarterback like that.
perfect. Well, Joe, you still got two more. Why don't you hit me with your number three then?
Yeah, so we're not going to share this one at least, and that is the 1981 San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, I was just outside of my birth realm.
When were you born, Mike?
82. I would have not, I
Okay.
would, I might have been baking at the time, but yeah, no. So,
Well, they were a crap team. It kind of reminded me of Belichick, Brady. This is like Walsh, Montana, like still figuring out their dynasty. Um, they'd had Joe Montana. He was a Notre Dame successful quarterback. Excuse me. The guy, but they had a very boring offense. 6-10, very inconsistent. Joe Montana was just still maturing. What changed was Bill Walsh, and that West Coast offense that, unlike those precise short passes and timing, it changed the NFL. In fact, we talk a lot now about coaching trees, and we give a lot of credit to Shanahan for that. And, what led to McVay and O'Connell. And we talk McDaniel, like if you're in the locker room with this coach for 5 minutes, you're all of a sudden like coaching royalty. There's no such thing as a coaching tree that doesn't start with Bill Walsh. Every coaching tree started from Bill Walsh. And that stems from the West Coast offense. And then Joe Montana became confident and a clutch performer. And then you saw just young players make really quick advancements. And then this win launched one of the greatest NFL dynasties in history. So this wasn't just a turnaround, it was a cultural shift in NFL offense.
I love this pick. Of course, they're on my radar, Joe, when I was putting together this list. This is one of those teams that you look back on and you go, wow. Of course, I think what's interesting is to me as a kid, the Niners were always dominant. I never knew that there was a time that they were struggling to get there. By the time that I was watching them, Walsh was dominant, and then Seifert takes over, and they're good as well. I just assumed that they were bulletproof because you had Montana that was there, and then Montana leaves, and you got Steve Young, and I'm like, oh, they're just always going to be this team.
And then you got Alex Smith, you got Colin Kaepernick, and you got
Yeah.
Mac Jones, and you got Purdy, and they
Yeah.
always got somebody. They're just as well run organization as you can be that they're just going to bounce back constantly.
They did, and this was I looked into this one and I was like, wow, it's incredible. That West Coast offense is so fun to look at the history of it. The viewpoint of throwing down the field, and all of a sudden, the idea is well, what if our passing game was our running game? What if we got 4 or 5 yards with the pass instead of 15 or 20? And you talk about Walsh, but really, you need to have a quarterback that can execute. And I think that was a perfect marriage with Montana and later with Young, somebody that can make those throws and make that thing work. And of course, the league was unprepared for it. And now we don't call it the West Coast offense because that's just the standard passing offense in the NFL now. It has become the template. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's an incredible team, incredible story, incredible comeback. Of course, they were on my radar. But I love this pick, Joe. Great, great, great number three there.
Well, let's find out if we're gonna go 3 for 4. Tie previous.
Ooh,
I have a feeling we won't,
I
because then
have a
my next
feeling.
pick is close to home, literally.
Oh, well, and if you were upset with my Philly pick, this one's going to sting a lot more, Joe. I'm
Ugh.
going with the 2007 New York Giants, the
Yeah,
Road
I saw
Warriors.
that. I thought about it. I couldn't, in good faith, put him on there.
It's an outside pick to some degree. Some people might, they were 8-8. They didn't even have a losing
That was
season
the
the year
Tiki Barber
before.
year. He's the one that really missed out that season.
That Tiki Barber year. And then you got Tom Coughlin, one of the all-time great coaches, who takes his team and the whole thing. They interviewed him a bunch, and the idea was okay, I'm going to be less angry, right? I'm going to be less angry, and it pays off. The personality change and more encouraging. Somehow that works. Steve Spagnuolo, of course, his defense in that year. But here's the deal: while they are 8-8, and they are not completely outside of it, nobody thought they were going to get to the Super Bowl. They finished the season 10-6. They make the playoffs in the wild card. And by the time when they get to the Super Bowl, guess who they're facing? The 18 and 0 or 19 and or well, no, 18 and 0 New England Patriots on their way to hopefully a perfect season. And we're talking, yeah, I see, sorry, Joe. And then you got the David Tyree with the helmet catch. You got the plexical burst. It almost feels I don't know, like written or something. I don't know what the word is. It's an insane little piece of history. For some of us, might be the worst one we want to ignore. For others, we go, wow, what a game, what a year, what a memory to keep right there.
What kind of cruel joke? I don't know if there's a higher being out there that's doing these things. I don't know what, but to be a kid watching your favorite team win every single game of the regular season and the postseason up to the Super Bowl, playing a team that was on the road every single game in the playoffs, wild card. We already played that year and had beat. To then watch them lose in the fashion they lost, it was devastating, Mike. The only revenge I had was Eli Manning getting snubbed from the Hall of Fame again this year. That's all I got. I mean, he did it again to us. We don't need to recap that second time he did it. But my God, in New York and Boston have a huge rivalry with each other. The fact that it was a New York market just made it that much worse.
It's a tough one. And the Eli Manning one, I think, is part of the reason I put this on my surprise because I don't think anybody was thinking that guy was going to be able to overcome ever. And he
He was
did it.
probably on teetering getting benched if he didn't pull off at least a playoff appearance
I
going into
think
that
this
season.
this game changed his career and the way we view
100%.
him. Yeah, view him for sure. I know we're not going to share it, Joe. I do love this one. The Road Warriors, the stories behind it, the mythology, taking down the undefeated team. It's a tough one if you're a Patriots fan, but and whatever, man. They're back in the Super Bowl. All right, Joe, you got your
Yeah, there's not a lot
final.
of sympathy for New England. I get it. But the fact that you went undefeated, if we had one loss, it wouldn't sting as much. Like if we went 15 and 1 and lost, that's happened. But to win every game, and lose is just to Eli Manning, who's like a mouth breather on top of it, like he did. And then you have to deal with, is he elite? Is he not elite? And the answer is he's not.
No, no,
We
yeah.
just pretended he was because of a Mario, what's his name? Mario Manningham in one Super Bowl and David Tyree in another did something they've never done prior. I think David Tyree was on the Ravens practice squad the following season. Just insane.
Joe, before we do your last pick, I do have a question for you. This just kind of came up to me. How do you feel about teams that purposely try to maybe not win at all? I know there was the time where the Colts were on a route to looking at being undefeated with Manning, and you got Dungy who benched players on purpose in the final game of the season or close to it or whatever, with the not necessarily to lose, but like that idea that there are some people that go out there and say, it's better to go in with one loss rather than that pressure of being undefeated. What are your thoughts on that? Win them
I
all?
understand both sides. Some fear it's a distraction that puts too much pressure in the when it doesn't matter if your only goal is to win the Super Bowl. Others look at it as motivation to play harder to win that Super Bowl. So I see both sides of it. I think for someone to sit your players when you have to stay healthy makes a lot of sense to me because at the end of the day, you want people healthy in the postseason. To purposely lose, I would because they feel the distraction. I don't think that's happening. I think they're like, let's do what makes sense and not to be healthy for the postseason. We're not here to go undefeated and lose in the biggest game because we took risks to go 16 and 0. And I don't think New England when they did it had any injury notoriety from doing it. I mean, they're all banged up at some point, at that point in the year. So maybe a week or two of rest for some of those guys would have been helpful, but I don't think that's why they lost per se. But I see both sides. I don't have a strong opinion either way. But for me, if I'm the coach, I want to go for the historic. There's over 50 Super Bowl winners. There's never been anyone other than Miami Dolphins to do it undefeated. And if you do it now, you have won more games than Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. Like you kind of took it there at the end and made your stance that you'd probably play it. Here's the same thing as the movie Signs, where the guy says, how come you struck out so much? And he goes, well, it just didn't feel right not swinging, right? And there's something to that. It's like you got a chance to do it all. Go for it,
Yeah,
man.
you got to go for it.
You got to go for it. All right. Speaking of going for it, fourth and final, Joe, wrap it up. Send us home.
So I'm picking a team close to home, and that's my Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh.
2000. Um, they were a surprise, kind of like the Giants in many ways when they won. They were kind of a similar team the year before, because I think the Giants were too. Like when the Giants were a good team that just missed the postseason the year before, and they get in the postseason barely, and they just make a miraculous run. The Ravens were kind of similar story. The year before '99, they were 8-8, very average. They missed the postseason. Their defense was good, but it was not elite by any means. What changed was really Ray Lewis and the Baltimore defense becoming historically dominant. They added some pieces too, like Rod Woodson and Trevor Price, and there were some other playmakers that turned the unit into a shutdown force. And unlike the Giants situation where Eli Manning just was playing out of his mind in January, that was not the case for the Ravens offense during the season or throughout. They really relied on the defense. I mean, Trent Dilfer came in after they sat their starting quarterback from last season just out of poor play. They were winning games, but not well. And Trent Dilfer didn't change a whole lot. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. In fact, I think they had the longest streak of wins not having scored a touchdown. But it was enough. And to Dilfer's credit, he had a great performance in the Super Bowl. And given the timing of the Ray Lewis indictment, he was actually the Disney World Super Bowl MVP. But Ray Lewis was the reason that whole thing happened. They allowed only 23 points over 4 playoff games en route to Super Bowl title. One of the most dominant defensive runs ever. Defense didn't just win games, it defined a turnaround. I have never, as we talk about historic offenses with the West Coast or the greatest show on turf, if you're going to think of a defense, in fact, they made a 30 for 30 about this defense as well. You have to, and the Goose and Sarah and Ray Lewis and Jamal, and this is before Ed Reed too, which we know to become a Terrell Suggs. That was defense with personality, identity, and dominance.
This is a great pick, and I love that this is our fourth and final because this is a great time to take a look at a microcosm of sports at the time. I played high school in the '90s. And I will tell you well, your best offense is a good defense. Defense wins championships. Defense was the mantra of high school, college, professional sports at the time. What we've seen now, right, this push towards the last 10 years in all of our sports with the multitude of three-pointers in basketball and the offensive explosions in NFL. Back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, it was all about did you have the defense? That was your linchpin, and everything else was built around it. And if there was ever a team that epitomized the fact that defense wins championships, I would say the Baltimore Ravens in 2000 is defense alone can win you a championship. Dilfer was a game manager, and he was fine at that. And he had moments where he did just fine. But take out Ray Lewis, take Saragusa not destroying Rich Gannon on the playoff game leading up to the Super Bowl and literally changing the nature of that game against a Raiders team that was really tough. Ray Lewis and his theatrics throughout. What an incredible team to look back on, and a running game too, right? It's defense and running, right? They had was it Jamal Lewis? Was he a 2,000 yard season that year? He
No,
was
not
close. I
yet.
think
He
it was
was
the
rookie
next
that
year.
season.
So yeah, so it was like the next or the soon after. But that was the whole thing is we're gonna run the ball down your throat, and you can't do anything on your offensive end. And it's funny to say that, but it was super exciting at the time. I remember watching Ravens games to see their defense, and Ray Lewis would straight up destroy people. Like he hit harder than a Mack truck, man. That dude was big and strong and nasty, and he would talk about it, which made it even. He was like a wide receiver playing linebacker. It was a lot of fun. What a great pick, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, talk about personalities in football. Is there one? I mean, I've been to many Ravens games. To watch him come out of the tunnel, the dance, the flair, the smack talk. I mean, he is elite when it comes to defensive personalities on top of it. And it created a culture of defensive identity for the Baltimore Ravens for the next decade plus. I mean, credit to Joe Flacco. He won a ring and had a great run. But it really wasn't until Lamar that we really see the Ravens have offensive firepower and identify as an offensive threat. Before then, they've always had defensive identity in all their postseason teams.
Dude, yeah. And I think that you can always look back at that team, any coaches now, and it's like, you want to build a team, build them with defense first, and then,
Buccaneers
and
did it too, right around
yep.
that time.
Yeah, the Tampa too, and all of that stuff. You look at those teams. Those teams had so much different identities back then. It's kind of interesting now where the NFL's been a bit more homogenized over time, but yeah, it was a fun time period.
And it's kind of the theme for the Super Bowl is both teams have incredibly strong defenses. I mean, especially Seattle right now. And all the games that New England played in the postseason in weather games were under 20 points. Very low scoring games. Defensive identities come back. And we see it's all going waves. I remember during the heyday of New England and Peyton Manning, and you were seeing 40, 50-point games, 5,000-yard throws. Now we're going back to defense wins championships. I like it.
I think it's the way it should be. Where the pendulum swinging back to the middle here, and that's where it deserves. All right, Joe, we've got our four picks in, but I guess my question to you, and I'm sure you're gonna fire back at me, is Super Bowl's in a couple hours, man. What do you think?
I know. Uh, I mean, I know Seattle is heavily favored, 4.5 points, which is a lot for this game. Um, I mean, I told you about my fandom in New England growing up. It doesn't feel like the same team. I don't root for them actively. I'm a Commanders fan first and foremost. But if gun in my head, pick a team I want to see win, it's New England. But my heart, given the data, I shouldn't say this. My heart is in it for New England. My brain is telling me Seattle's a better team. But I'll be rooting for New England today.
I think I am too. And my pick is New England as the underdog to win this thing. And I think it's a little bit of heart because Vrabel, first year, or yeah, is this his first year coaching? I think, or second, or whatever. But like to be in the Super Bowl at this point in time, like this is incredible. And I'd like to see him get one. As a coach, I'd like to see. I think Drake May's got a bright future. I like Seattle. I like, for Darnold to finish out. That would be cool too. I don't know, man. Like there's a lot of storylines here, but I'll be watching. And I'm kind of with you. I don't really have much of a dog in the fight. Let's put it that way. So I'm just kind of watching to enjoy it.
I love the prop bets of like over-unders on the halftime show, who scores first,
Coin
national
flip.
anthem, coin flip. Um, but Mike, an even bigger question is how many chicken wings get consumed today? we had an estimated 1.5 billion chicken wings last year's Super Bowl consumed in America, according to the National Chicken Council's annual Chicken Wing Report. Now, are you taking the over or the under for this year's?
Oh man, that is such a good. I'm taking the under, and it's not like a knock on the current economy or anything like that. I just think that there's too much variety of snacks and DoorDash this year that is going to impact the amount of chicken wings that are consumed. So,
Well, the NFL is just a conspiracy to sell food, according to Matthew McConaughey and Bradley Cooper.
oh yeah, Cooper, they're probably right. Yeah,
I'm taking the over because, like most things in the NFL, the number only gets larger. And it's last year's figure, believe it or not, is 20 million more than the year before.
oh wow,
And the NFL doesn't regress, it progresses. So and America, we don't lose weight, we gain it. And
yeah.
then we put something into our spleen if we want to lose it instead of actually stopping putting the thing down. But actually I take that back, Ozempic may decrease that number because people's appetites aren't the same.
That's an interesting. This is going to be interesting, Joe. I guess we'll have to see who wins this one for different reasons. We're kind of on different
I'm
sides of
taking
this.
the over because I just know supply and demand is there. Whether they all get eaten or not, that's the Ozempic argument. I
They're
can't
buying
I
them.
can't validate a clean plate club in this transaction, but I can if there's a financial disclosure of amount bought, I'm taking the over.
Well, I will. I don't know if we have. I'll see. I'll check the freezer, see if I got any chicken wings I can air fry to help you out there a little bit, Joe. So
Beautiful. Remember to send it to the chicken wing report at their council. I think they meet in probably in Montana.
that's a good spot for it. Yeah. Well, we're more of a beef cow town kind of state.
You're right.
So
Ribeye steaks on Thanksgiving,
yeah.
whatever.
What's the over under on ribeye steaks today? Well,
Yeah, in Montana,
in Montana, yeah.
that's a baker's dozen right there.
Well, you've heard it here, man. We gave our picks, best turnaround teams. We shared some. We didn't have some. Feelings might have gotten hurt a little bit, but you know what? Whatever. That's the question: is what are you going to carve onto your mountain? Hopefully, you have a wonderful Super Bowl. Watch the game, watch the commercials, watch the halftime show or the alternatives if you dare. Until the next episode, he's Joe Mintz. I'm Mike Mintz, and this is the Mount Rushmore Show.